Have you ever been judged in a single moment, before anyone even knew your story? Before they saw your struggle, your sacrifices, or the quiet strength it took just to show up? Because sometimes, the harshest doors are closed not because you don't belong, but because someone decided you didn't. If stories like this touch your heart, take a moment to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Welcome to Echoes of Stories, where every story reminds us that kindness still matters. It was a warm afternoon in Los Angeles, the kind where sunlight bounced off glass buildings and polished cars, making everything feel just a little out of reach for people like Daniel. Daniel stood outside the luxury car dealership, holding his daughter Lily's small hand. She clutched her stuffed rabbit tightly, her wide eyes scanning the shiny cars inside. Her dress was simple, a little faded, but clean. Daniel's shirt was worn, sleeves rolled up, his boots carrying the dust of long hours and hard work. "Daddy," Lily whispered, tugging his hand gently, "are we really going inside?" Daniel looked down at her and smiled softly. "Yeah, sweetheart. We're just going to look." But deep inside, he wasn't so sure. Still, he pushed the glass door open. The showroom was quiet, filled with luxury cars that gleamed under bright lights. Salesmen in tailored suits moved around with confident smiles, speaking in low, polished tones. The air itself felt expensive. And then came the look. A sharply dressed salesman approached them, his eyes quickly scanning Daniel from head to toe. It was the kind of look that didn't need words to speak. "Can I help you?" the man asked, his tone polite, but distant. Daniel nodded. "Yeah, I just wanted to take a look at a few models. Maybe talk about options." The salesman's lips tightened slightly. "These vehicles are premium," he said carefully. "Prices start well above 6 figures." Daniel felt the weight of those words, but he didn't flinch. "I understand." Lily squeezed his hand, sensing something she couldn't quite explain. The salesman gave a thin smile. "Maybe you'd be more comfortable at a different dealership. We don't want to waste your time." "Or ours," his eyes seemed to add. Daniel's jaw tightened. He had faced this before. Not just today, not just here. But every time, it stung just the same. "We're fine," Daniel said quietly. But the man stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Sir, this place isn't for people like you." The words landed like a slap. Lily looked up at her father, confused and a little scared. Daniel exhaled slowly, his pride wrestling with his patience. He didn't want to argue, not in front of his daughter. Not over someone who had already decided who he was. "Come on, Lily," he said gently. They turned to leave. But just as they reached the door, a voice called out from behind them. "Wait." It was calm, firm, and carried authority. The room seemed to shift. A woman stepped forward from the upper level, where she had been watching. She was dressed simply but elegantly, her expression serious as she walked toward them. The salesman straightened immediately. "Ma'am, I was just—" "I saw," she interrupted. She turned her attention to Daniel and Lily. Her gaze softened. "I'm sorry about that," she said. "Would you mind staying for a moment?" Daniel hesitated. He wasn't sure what this was about. But something in her tone felt different. They stayed. The woman walked past them, heading toward the large glass windows facing the parking lot. She looked outside, then turned back. "Is that your truck?" she asked. Daniel nodded slowly. "Yeah." It was parked across the street. Old, slightly rusted, with tools stacked neatly in the back. It wasn't much to look at, but it was his. The woman smiled faintly. "I thought so." She turned to the salesman. "Do you know what that truck is?" The man frowned. "It's old." "No," she said. "It's a custom-built engine. Reinforced suspension. Hand-assembled modifications you won't find in most modern vehicles. The salesman blinked, confused. The woman looked back at Daniel. You built it yourself, didn't you? Daniel nodded, surprised. Yeah. Took me a few years. She smiled, this time with genuine admiration. I've seen vehicles worth millions that don't have that level of craftsmanship. The room fell silent. The salesman's confidence began to crack. The woman stepped closer to Daniel. My name is Claire, she said. I'm the CEO of this company. Daniel's eyes widened slightly. And I care deeply about who we welcome into this place, she continued. Because it says everything about who we are. She turned sharply to the salesman. And today, we failed. The man stammered, trying to recover. I didn't mean. You meant exactly what you said, Claire replied calmly. And that's the problem. Lily held her father's hand tighter, but now her fear was fading, replaced by curiosity. Claire knelt down slightly to meet Lily at eye level. Hi there, she said gently. That's a very nice bunny. Lily smiled shyly. Thank you. Claire stood again, turning back to Daniel. If you're still interested, I'd love to personally show you around. No pressure. Just respect. Daniel looked at his daughter. Then back at Claire. For the first time since walking in, he felt seen. Okay, he said quietly. What followed wasn't about selling a car. Claire walked them through the showroom, explaining each vehicle with genuine enthusiasm. But more than that, she listened. She asked Daniel about his work, his truck, his life. And Daniel spoke, not as someone being judged, but as someone being valued. Lily even got to sit inside one of the cars, her laughter filling the room in a way that felt warmer than any luxury ever could. By the end, Daniel didn't buy anything. But he didn't leave empty-handed either. Because something more important had happened. He left with dignity. With respect. With a reminder that kindness doesn't come from status, money, or appearance, it comes from choice. As Daniel and Lily stepped outside, Claire watched them go. She knew something important had been restored that day. Not just a customer relationship, but a human one. And inside the showroom, things would never be quite the same again. Because one moment of kindness had quietly rewritten the rules. So the next time you see someone who doesn't seem to belong, take a second look. You might just be looking at someone extraordinary. And your kindness might be the moment that changes everything.